You are not suffering because you are single. You are suffering because you have not examined the judgments that make you believe you need someone else to be whole. This video is for the mind that keeps reacting without inspection, that confuses desire with necessity, and that lets loneliness turn into distorted conclusions about personal worth. We will return everything to reason, to what is in your control, and to the daily discipline of governing your own thoughts before they govern you. If you choose to stay with this practice of clear thinking and inner order, subscribe and stay close, not for comfort, but for discipline shared between minds that refuse self-deception. Number 1. Accept solitude and strengthen your character before seeking companionship. Listen carefully. If you cannot stand your own company with calm and discipline, then you are not ready to ask another person to carry the weight of your life. A person who fears silence will not become wise in a relationship. A person who runs from solitude will not become strong in love. He will become dependent. He will confuse desire with need. He will call attachment a bond and call weakness tenderness. Do not lie to yourself. If you cannot govern yourself when you are alone, then you will not govern yourself when someone enters your life and touches your vanity, your hunger, your fear, and your pride. The problem is not being single. The problem is that many people are so untrained that they cannot bear their own mind without reaching for distraction. They are restless because they have never learned to sit with truth. You must begin here, not with romance, not with fantasy, not with the hope that another person will save you from the rough work of becoming decent. Begin with the plain question, what is your life when no one is applauding it? What is your mind when no one is texting you? What is your character when no one is choosing you? What remains when the noise is gone? This is the real life. Everything else is decoration. Solitude does not invent your character. It reveals it. And what it reveals may be embarrassing. You may discover that you are impatient. You may discover that you are vain. You may discover that you are guided by craving rather than reason. Good, better to discover it now than after you have built your peace on another person and watched it collapse when they fail you, as all human beings eventually will. There is a hard truth here that most people avoid. A relationship does not create inner stability, it only exposes whether you had any. If you are scattered now, you will be scattered with company. If you are jealous now, you will be jealous with company. If you are ruled by impulse now, you will be ruled by impulse with company. So understand this clearly. Being single is not a punishment. It is a training ground. It is the place where you find out whether your mind belongs to you. It is the place where you learn to endure your own thoughts without begging the world to entertain you. It is the place where you begin to practice freedom. Freedom in this philosophy does not mean doing whatever you feel. That is slavery dressed as independence. Freedom means ruling what is yours to rule. Your judgments, your choices, your reactions, your desires, your attention, your willingness to act rightly even when no one is watching. This is what belongs to you. Everything else is not yours. The opinions of others are not yours. The moods of others are not yours. The timing of life is not yours. Whether someone loves you back is not yours. Whether someone stays is not yours. Whether someone notices your worth is not yours. To tie your peace to these things is to place your soul in foreign hands and then act surprised when it trembles. So first, govern your desire. Most suffering begins there. A person sees companionship and immediately wants it. Then want becomes expectation. Expectation becomes demand. Demand becomes fear. Fear becomes desperation. And desperation makes a person abandon their standards before they ever get the chance to be tested. This is why many people enter relationships already corrupted by dependence. They are not looking to share a life. They are looking to stop the pain of being alone. That is a poor reason to join your life to another. It is not love, it is escape, and escape never teaches strength. it only delays the lesson. Learn to watch your desire before it hardens into command. When you feel the pull toward another person, ask yourself whether this pull is guided by reason or hunger. Ask whether you want their character or simply their attention. Ask whether you want to love or merely to be reassured. Ask whether you are drawn to them as a person or to the relief they seem to offer your loneliness. These questions are not cruel, they are cleansing. They strip away fantasy and force you to look directly at your motive. A mind that does not question its own motives is a mind easily ruled by appetite. This is why solitude can be smarter than constant pursuit. In solitude, the appetite loses some of its theater. You see what remains when no one is performing for you. You see your habits. You see your dependence on praise. You see how often you seek comfort instead of truth. You see how quickly your mood changes when a message arrives or does not arrive. A weak mind treats these tiny events as verdicts on its worth. A trained mind treats them as nothing more than appearances. One learns to say, this is only a message, this is only a delay, this is only a feeling, this is only an opinion. It is not the truth unless reason approves it. You must learn that your first task is not to find the right person. Your first task is to become the right person. That is a far greater duty. It requires discipline every day. Wake early and look at the day before it looks at you. Ask what kind of person you intend to be. Ask where you are likely to fail. Ask what temptation will find you. Ask what reaction you must refuse. This morning examination is not dramatic, it is simple and stern. It prepares the mind to act with purpose instead of drifting into habit. A single life gives you the room to do this without excuse. There is no need to say you are too busy with someone else, no need to hide behind shared schedules, no need to confuse emotional intensity with progress. You have time to build yourself. Use it. The discipline of solitude begins with attention. Most people are not suffering from a lack of love. They are suffering from a lack of attention. Their mind goes wherever impulse drags it. They think of what they do not have. They imagine what might happen. They rehearse future conversations. They resent the silence. They scroll to avoid their own thoughts. They consume noise because quiet would reveal how poorly they have trained their mind. Do not imitate them. When you sit alone, do not flee from the discomfort. Stay there, watch it, name it, acknowledge it. You feel restless, good. You feel lonely, good. You feel the urge to reach for distraction, good. Now ask whether this feeling is a command or merely an event. It is an event. Events do not rule the soul unless you allow them. The person who cannot be alone will use other people as medicine. That is not virtue, that is dependence with better clothing. A wise person does not make another human being responsible for his inner peace. He knows that every human being is mortal, every human being is changeable, every human being has limits, every human being can leave, every human being can fail. To build your stability on another person is to build on ground that moves. You do not insult them by recognizing this. You honor reality. You honor the nature of human life. You honor the fact that nothing external can be made secure by wish alone. What then should you do when loneliness hurts? You should not shame yourself for feeling it. You should not dramatize it either. You should examine it. What exactly do you miss? Is it company or the image of being chosen? Is it connection or the relief from self-scrutiny? Is it love or the comfort of having your worth reflected back at you? Be honest. Honesty is the beginning of healing in this philosophy. If you ask the wrong question, you will chase the wrong cure. Loneliness is not always a sign that you need another person. Sometimes it is a sign that your life is thin. Sometimes it is a sign that you have neglected duty. Sometimes it is a sign that your mind has become addicted to stimulation and now calls silence pain. Fill your day with worthy action. Serve those around you. Work well, read well, think well. Train the body, Clean your room, keep your promises, do the small duties that make the soul less noisy. The mind that has been put to work in virtue does not beg for constant distraction. Do not misunderstand. This is not a call to harden your heart. It is a call to purify it. Stoic strength is not coldness. It is clarity. A clear mind can care deeply without becoming dependent. A clear mind can appreciate another person without turning them into an idol. A clear mind can love without surrendering judgment. This matters because many people think being single means they must become bitter to protect themselves. No, bitterness is another form of slavery. It is the soul clinging to injury. It is the mind that says, since I cannot have what I want, I will despise what I do not have. That is not strength. That is cowardice in a stern mask. Refuse it. Stay gentle in spirit and strict in discipline. These are not enemies. The single life gives you a rare chance to practice self-sufficiency in the only way that matters, not the false self-sufficiency that says, I need no one and cares for no one. That is pride and loneliness together. Real self-sufficiency means your happiness does not depend on the presence of a particular person. You can enjoy company without being ruined by its absence. You can receive affection without becoming weak. You can appreciate closeness without losing your center. This is a high standard. It is not given, it is trained, and training requires repetition under pressure. Each day when you feel the impulse to seek validation, ask yourself whether you are about to act from reason or from need. When you are tempted to check whether someone responded, ask whether that action is necessary or merely soothing. When you want to be seen, ask whether the deed itself is enough. The good person does what is right because it is right. He does not wait for applause. Much suffering in dating and relationships comes from people who never learned to be complete before they became attached. They enter with emptiness in their hands and expect another person to fill it. But no human being can fill a void that was created by your own neglect of character. Another person can share your life. They cannot build your moral fiber. They can encourage you. They cannot carry your self-command. They can walk beside you. They cannot walk for you. If you do not already possess a life governed by reason, then you will turn the relationship into a battlefield of expectations. You will ask for endless reassurance. You will fear abandonment. You will react to every small disappointment as if your world had ended. That is not love. That is possession. So use this season to strengthen the inner citadel. Begin with the body, because the body is often where discipline first collapses. Get up when you said you would get up. Eat with measure. Move every day. Stand in discomfort without complaint. Take a cold shower sometimes if that helps teach you that comfort is not a law. Leave the phone untouched for deliberate periods. Eat without constant entertainment. Walk without music. Sit in silence for 10 minutes and let the mind settle under its own weight. These exercises are not heroic. They are honest. They teach the soul that it does not die when pleasure is absent. They teach you that you can endure more than your cravings tell you. This matters because a person who cannot endure small discomforts will not endure the frustrations of human closeness without becoming demanding and weak. Then train the mind. Each evening review the day. Ask where you acted with reason and where you surrendered to impulse. Ask where you spoke too quickly. Ask where you sought attention. Ask where you avoided a hard task. Ask where you entertained fantasies about a relationship instead of attending to the life in front of you. Do not perform the review to punish yourself. Do it to become better. The honest examination of the self is one of the greatest protections against delusion. It stops you from building a life on self-praise. You will learn that many of your feelings are not truths but passing motions. You will see how often fear dresses itself up as intuition. You will see how often desire pretends to be destiny. Once seen clearly, these things lose some of their power. Look also at the way you talk to yourself. Many people are cruel to themselves in secret and then confused by their instability. They call themselves unwanted. They call themselves behind. They call themselves incomplete. These are not innocent words. They shape conduct. If you tell yourself you are incomplete without a partner, you will begin living as if your life is on hold. You will make decisions from shortage. You will settle for less than you should. You will betray your standards out of panic. Correct the inner speech. Speak as a rational being would speak. My worth is in my character. My task is to act rightly. My peace depends on my judgment. My life is mine to govern today. This is not vanity, it is responsibility. Another hard truth. Many people seek companionship because they are afraid of facing their own habits. Alone they must confront their laziness. Alone they must confront their wasted hours. Alone they must confront their cravings, their envy, their shallow attention, their avoidance of difficult work. So they chase a relationship and call it growth, but another person will not remove these flaws. Often they will magnify them. If you are lazy now, you will be lazy with company. If you are dishonest now, you will be dishonest with company. If you are self-indulgent now, you will be self-indulgent with company. Therefore, do not ask a relationship to hide the parts of you that still need work. Bring those parts into the light while you are single. That is the wiser path. There is also something noble in learning to be content without being dependent. A person who is content with simple living is harder to corrupt. He is not constantly bargaining with himself. He does not need a glamorous image to feel alive. He does not turn every evening into a search for stimulation. He can read, he can work, he can think, he can rest. He can be alone without feeling exiled from life. This kind of person is not dull. He is steady, and steadiness is rare. A steady person can love more clearly because he is not begging for love to save him. He can give without calculation. He can listen without fear. He can choose without desperation. That is a superior state of soul. Do not mistake the goal. The goal is not to be single forever. The goal is to become so self-governed that your choices are made from virtue and reason rather than fear of loneliness. You may one day join your life with another, but if you do, let it be from fullness, not emptiness. Let it be because your character is already in order. Let it be because you are capable of living well alone and therefore capable of living well with someone else. The person who has learned to be alone has something to offer. He is not searching for a savior, he is searching for shared duty. He knows that any union worth having must be built on truth. He knows that affection without discipline decays. He knows that admiration without character is dust. For now, keep your mind on your own work. There is so much to do. You must become less reactive. You must become less needy. You must become less impressed by appearance. You must become less ruled by fantasy. You must become more patient, more truthful, more useful, more steadfast. When the longing for relationship appears, do not condemn yourself. Simply do not surrender to it. Desire is an animal. It must be trained by reason, not worshipped. Let it come, let it pass, and continue your task. There is dignity in not obeying every impulse. There is dignity in saying not now to the self. There is dignity in waiting until your choice is clean. You will know you are growing when solitude no longer feels like exile. You will know you are growing when a quiet evening does not unsettle you. You will know you are growing when your value is not measured by being desired. You will know you are growing when you stop making another person's attention the center of your day. You will know you are growing when you can look at a future without companionship and not panic. That does not mean you have no heart. It means your heart is no longer governed by fear. And a heart governed by reason is a powerful thing. There will still be moments when the old craving returns. That is human, but do not confuse recurrence with defeat. Each time the craving rises, you have another chance to practice the same discipline. Pause, breathe, name what is happening. What is this feeling asking of me? What is under my control here? What is not under my control here? What would reason do? Then act accordingly. This small pause is one of the most practical freedoms you can ever learn. It creates space between impression and response. In that space, your life changes. Without it, you are dragged by whatever appears strongest in the moment. With it, you begin to live as a ruler of yourself. Also remember this: a lonely mind often thinks in extremes. It says, I am behind. It says, everyone else has found something I lack. It says, I must hurry. It says, I am less because I am not chosen. These thoughts are false because they measure life by the wrong standard. The standard is not how quickly you are attached. The standard is whether you are becoming just, disciplined, brave, and wise. A person can be surrounded and still be inwardly empty. A person can be single and yet fuller in soul than many who are constantly accompanied. Do not let the crowd define your condition. Let your character define it. When you feel the need to compare yourself to others, ask whether their path is your path. It is not. Their desires are not your duties. Their timeline is not your law. Their appearance of happiness is not your truth. Comparison is often a trick of the untrained mind. It distracts you from your own labor. It invites envy. It creates restlessness. Refuse it. Return to your work. Your task is not to outpace others in romance. Your task is to outgrow your former self. That is enough for a lifetime. Use your single season to become difficult to deceive and impossible to bend away from your principles. Be the kind of person who does not collapse when affection is missing. Be the kind of person who does not change his values to gain approval. Be the kind of person who can sit with uncertainty without becoming frantic. Be the kind of person who can admit a desire without obeying it. Be the kind of person who would rather be alone than dishonorable. This is not a small achievement. This is freedom. And do not forget service. A single life should not become a self-enclosed life. The purpose of self-mastery is not isolation for its own sake. It is readiness to live rightly among others. Help where you can. Work honestly. Speak truthfully. Keep your word. Be useful. Be calm under pressure. Be fair. These acts keep the soul from turning inward in sickness. They remind you that virtue is lived in action, not in self-admiration. If you want to know whether you are becoming stronger while single, look not at your fantasies, but at your conduct. Are you more patient with family? Are you more reliable at work? Are you less reactive? Are you kinder without expecting return? Are you able to be useful even when you are not being praised? That is growth. Some will tell you that being single means something is wrong with you. Do not accept their ignorance. What is wrong is to hand your peace to another person before you have learned to guard it. What is wrong is to rush into attachment because silence frightens you. What is wrong is to make fear the architect of your life. Being single is only a problem if you make it one through laziness and self-pity. If you use it rightly, it becomes a great advantage. It gives you the chance to build a soul that does not shake at every breeze. It gives you the chance to choose rather than to cling. It gives you the chance to prepare for any future without begging for one. Think often on mortality, not to become gloomy, but to become serious. Your time is short. Your days are not endless. You do not have the luxury of wasting them in constant distraction or in emotional dependency. A life spent waiting for someone else to complete you is a life already half lost. Wake up, attend to your mind, attend to your work, attend to your duties, attend to your values, attend to what is in front of you today. This day is enough to practice greatness. This evening is enough to review yourself honestly. This moment is enough to choose reason over impulse. Do not postpone your character until a relationship arrives. Character is what makes a relationship worthy. The strongest life is not the life that has the most attention. It is the life that can remain upright without it. The strongest heart is not the heart that is always held. It is the heart that can hold itself steady. The strongest person is not the one who never feels loneliness. It is the one who feels it and does not become its servant. This is what you are being invited into. Not numbness, not bitterness, not isolation, discipline, clarity, freedom. So today, begin. Sit quietly and tell yourself the truth. I do not need to rush into attachment to prove my worth. I do not need to use another person to escape my own mind. I do not need to be chosen to become honorable. I need to govern myself. I need to strengthen my judgment. I need to train my desire. I need to accept what I cannot control. I need to act well in the time given to me. That is the work. That is enough. That is the road to peace. And when the old fear returns, as it will, answer it with discipline. I can be alone and still live well. I can be unseen and still live rightly. I can be without company and still be complete in virtue. No one else can do this work for me. No one else can think my thoughts for me. No one else can choose my response for me. No one else can make my soul orderly. That belongs to me. So I will not waste this day. Go now and prove it. Live in such a way that solitude becomes a workshop for strength. Let it polish your attention. Let it harden your resolve. Let it cleanse your motives. Let it teach you that your peace does not hang from another person's hand. Let it teach you that you can stand upright, simple, alert, and free. The world may still offer you noise. It may still offer you temptation. It may still offer you the old lie that you are incomplete alone. Refuse it. You are not incomplete. You are unfinished, and the work of finishing belongs to you. Number 2. Govern your desires before they begin governing your decisions. Desire rarely arrives wearing its true face. It does not announce that it has come to rule your life. It whispers that one small compromise will not matter. It tells you that one more indulgence can be justified. It convinces you that you can return to discipline tomorrow. Before long, your choices are no longer guided by reason, but by whatever feeling shouts the loudest. That is how a person slowly surrenders the government of their own life. They do not lose control in one dramatic moment. They give it away through hundreds of small decisions that were never examined. Look carefully at your own day. How many actions were chosen because they were right, and how many were chosen because they promised immediate comfort? How many words escaped your mouth before your judgment had approved them? How many hours disappeared because your attention followed every passing impulse? Most people never ask these questions. They believe their life is directed by circumstance, when in truth it is directed by habit. Habit is simply yesterday's repeated decision becoming today's automatic behavior. If those decisions were never tested by reason, then habit becomes an invisible ruler. You cannot call yourself free while your desires decide how you spend your time, how you treat people, how you respond to disappointment, or how you define success. Freedom is not measured by how many options stand before you. Freedom is measured by whether your own mind can refuse what should be refused and embrace what should be embraced without hesitation. A person who obeys every craving is not exercising freedom. He is abandoning it. Many people believe desire is strongest when it concerns wealth, pleasure, or recognition. Yet desire often hides inside ordinary moments. It appears when you feel compelled to answer every criticism. It appears when silence feels unbearable because you want constant stimulation. It appears when praise becomes necessary before you believe your work has value. These desires may seem harmless because society encourages them, but anything that weakens your ability to govern yourself deserves careful examination. The first mistake is believing every desire deserves trust. Your mind produces countless impressions throughout the day. Some invite wisdom, others invite regret. The disciplined person does not immediately follow either one. He pauses, he observes, he asks whether this impulse deserves obedience or rejection. This brief interruption between feeling and action is where character begins. Without it, you become predictable. Every temptation knows exactly how to control you because you have never questioned your first reaction. There is no shame in experiencing desire. It belongs to human nature. The danger begins when desire becomes your judge instead of your servant. Hunger tells you to eat. Pride tells you to defend yourself. Fear tells you to retreat. Pleasure tells you to delay difficult work. None of these voices should hold authority simply because they speak loudly. Your responsibility is not to silence them forever. Your responsibility is to decide whether they deserve agreement. Consider how often your day changes because of a passing feeling. You planned to complete meaningful work, yet the attraction of comfort redirected your attention. You intended to remain patient, yet one careless remark from another person transformed your mood. You hoped to act honestly, yet fear of rejection encouraged compromise. These moments reveal something important. External events did not force these decisions. Your judgments gave them permission. Every desire presents itself as urgent. It insists that satisfaction cannot wait. Yet urgency is rarely evidence of necessity. The undisciplined mind mistakes intensity for importance. The disciplined mind knows they are different. A powerful feeling may still point toward a foolish action. The wise response is never determined by emotional force. It is determined by careful examination. This examination must become part of your daily life. Each morning before your responsibilities begin, sit quietly for a few moments and prepare your judgment. Ask yourself what desires are likely to appear today. Perhaps you know impatience will visit during work. Perhaps you know vanity will seek admiration. Perhaps you know resentment waits behind an old disagreement. Do not pretend surprise when these tendencies appear. Expect them. Preparation weakens their power because nothing catches a trained mind unprepared. When you identify these likely temptations before the day begins, you transform them from hidden enemies into expected visitors. An expected visitor rarely creates panic. You simply recognize its arrival and respond according to principle rather than impulse. This morning discipline is not prediction for its own sake. It is preparation for self-government. As the day unfolds, practice another exercise. Whenever a strong desire appears, delay your agreement. Do not immediately call it good simply because it feels pleasant. Say to yourself that this is only an impression asking for approval. Approval belongs to reason, not to emotion. This small sentence creates enough distance for wisdom to enter. Often the desire that seemed overwhelming loses much of its force once it is examined calmly. Notice how many unnecessary burdens disappear when you stop believing every desire deserves fulfillment. You no longer chase endless approval because you recognize that another person's opinion never belonged to your control. You no longer become distressed when outcomes differ from your expectations because outcomes were never guaranteed. You no longer resent life's uncertainty because uncertainty belongs to the nature of existence itself. Your responsibility has always been your own conduct. Many people imagine discipline as constant struggle. They picture endless resistance against powerful emotions. Yet true discipline gradually becomes simpler because repeated practice changes your habits of judgment. The mind begins to recognize false promises more quickly. What once appeared irresistible now appears ordinary. What once seemed essential now reveals itself as unnecessary. This transformation does not happen because desire disappears. It happens because reason becomes stronger. Think carefully about the promises desire makes. It tells you that comfort should always be chosen over effort. It tells you that immediate pleasure is worth more than lasting character. It tells you that avoiding discomfort protects your happiness, yet experience repeatedly proves the opposite. Comfort without discipline weakens you. Pleasure without measure empties you. Avoidance without examination leaves every important problem untouched. Desire speaks confidently, but it rarely tells the truth. The person who constantly obeys desire becomes easier to manipulate. Advertisements know what captures attention. Social approval knows what influences behavior. Fear knows exactly which weakness to exploit. Such a person believes he is making independent decisions while invisible forces quietly shape every choice. The disciplined person cannot be controlled so easily because he has learned to examine every invitation before accepting it. Ask yourself an uncomfortable question. If someone watched your decisions for 1 week without hearing your explanations, what would they conclude you truly value? Your schedule reveals more than your intentions. Your habits reveal more than your promises. Your repeated actions reveal the direction of your character. If desire governs your days, your life will quietly reflect its rule whether you admit it or not. There is another form of desire that deserves special attention. It is the desire to escape responsibility. This desire rarely appears openly. Instead, it invents excuses. It blames circumstances. It points toward difficult people. It complains about unfair situations. It encourages endless analysis without meaningful action. The mind enjoys these distractions because they protect the ego from honest examination. Yet every excuse postpones freedom. The examined life demands something more difficult. It demands that you ask what remains within your authority even when circumstances become unpleasant. Perhaps another person behaved unjustly. Their conduct belongs to them. Your response belongs to you. Perhaps success did not arrive despite sincere effort. The outcome belongs to fortune. Your commitment belongs to you. Perhaps today's work feels exhausting. The feeling belongs to the body. Your willingness to continue belongs to your character. This distinction changes everything. Once you clearly separate what belongs to you from what does not, desire loses much of its confusion. You stop demanding certainty from an uncertain world. You stop demanding perfect treatment from imperfect people. You stop demanding permanent comfort from a life that constantly changes. Instead, your attention returns to the one place where genuine improvement remains possible, your own judgment. Train yourself to notice the language of desire. It often begins with words such as, "I must have this," "I cannot tolerate this," "I deserve immediate satisfaction." Replace these claims with calmer questions. Is this truly necessary? Does this strengthen my character? Does this belong within my control? Am I acting according to reason or merely reacting to discomfort? These questions interrupt automatic thinking and invite deliberate choice. Do not expect instant mastery. The mind has spent years strengthening these patterns. It will not surrender them in a single afternoon. Some desires will return repeatedly. Let them return. Your task is not to eliminate every temptation. Your task is to respond better each time it appears. Progress belongs to repeated correction, not sudden perfection. Each evening, complete the work you began in the morning. Sit quietly before sleep and review the day without self-deception. Where did desire govern your decisions? Where did reason quietly prevail? Which moments deserve correction tomorrow? Which victories deserve continued practice? This evening, examination is not an exercise in guilt. Guilt without improvement serves no purpose. Honest review creates tomorrow's wisdom because it prevents today's mistakes from becoming permanent habits. You may discover that your greatest weakness appears in ordinary situations rather than dramatic ones. Perhaps impatience interrupts conversations. Perhaps distraction steals your attention from meaningful work. Perhaps envy quietly shapes your thoughts whenever another person succeeds. Welcome these discoveries. Hidden weaknesses cannot be corrected. Seen weaknesses already begin losing their influence. Remember that no external achievement can compensate for an undisciplined mind. A respected career cannot replace integrity. Public admiration cannot replace self-command. Wealth cannot purchase sound judgment. Even successful relationships cannot provide lasting peace if your own desires remain ungoverned. Everything outside you remains uncertain. Character alone accompanies you in every circumstance. The person who governs desire does not become emotionless. He becomes trustworthy. His decisions remain steady because they are not rewritten every hour by changing feelings. His words carry weight because they are chosen carefully. His relationships become healthier because he does not demand that others satisfy every emotional hunger. His work improves because attention remains fixed upon duty rather than distraction. His peace deepens because he no longer depends upon constant satisfaction. There will be days when your discipline feels weak. Continue anyway. There will be mornings when desire appears stronger than reason. Continue anyway. There will be evenings when your review reveals failure rather than progress. Continue anyway. Character is not measured by never falling. Character is measured by returning to right judgment each time you notice you have wandered. Never confuse temporary pleasure with lasting good. Pleasure comes and goes with changing conditions. The good remains available in every circumstance because it depends upon your own choices. Justice remains possible whether you receive praise or criticism. Courage remains possible whether success arrives or not. Self-control remains possible whether temptation is small or great. Wisdom remains possible whenever you pause long enough to examine your judgment before accepting it. This is why governing desire matters so deeply. Every important decision in your life passes through the gate of judgment. If desire stands guard at that gate, your life will be shaped by appetite. If reason stands guard there, your life will be shaped by virtue. Nothing outside you can make that choice. No teacher can make it for you. No friend can make it for you. No circumstance can remove the responsibility. From this day forward, refuse to let your first impulse become your final decision. Meet every desire with calm examination. Welcome every challenge as another opportunity to strengthen judgment. Return each morning to deliberate preparation. Return each evening to honest review. Protect your attention as carefully as you protect your reputation. Guard your judgments more carefully than you guard your possessions. When desire no longer commands your choices begin building a life that no passing emotion can easily destroy. That is the beginning of genuine freedom, and that freedom begins with the quiet decision you make the next time desire asks for immediate obedience. Number 3. Build inner peace through disciplined thoughts and daily self-examination. Inner peace is not something you discover after life finally becomes easy. It is something you build while life remains uncertain. Many people spend years waiting for quieter circumstances, kinder people, greater success, or fewer problems before they expect peace to appear. They have accepted a dangerous belief without examining it. They have allowed external events to become the judges of their inner condition. As long as that belief remains unchallenged, peace will always stay beyond reach because the world has never promised to arrange itself according to your wishes. Look closely at your own experience. How often has your mind been disturbed before anything difficult actually happened? A single possibility enters your thoughts, and your body reacts as though misfortune has already arrived. A brief conversation is replayed again and again until it grows into something much larger than reality. An uncertain future becomes an imagined certainty of failure. Nothing outside has changed, yet your peace has already disappeared. This is the work of an undisciplined mind. It suffers not only from events, but from the stories it invents about events. The first place to begin is with a simple admission. Your thoughts are not automatically true simply because they appear inside your mind. Every day, countless impressions arrive without invitation. Some are reasonable, others are careless. Some encourage courage, others encourage fear. If you welcome every thought without examination, you allow strangers to rule your own house. A wise person does not grant authority so easily. Every thought must first prove that it deserves agreement. This single practice changes the direction of an entire life. Instead of asking whether a thought feels convincing, begin asking whether it is supported by reason. There is a profound difference between these two questions. Feelings often arrive quickly. Reason moves more carefully. Feelings demand immediate agreement. Reason requests patient examination. Peace belongs to the person who learns to wait for reason before giving consent. Notice how quickly the mind creates judgments without your permission. Someone ignores your greeting, and you immediately assume disrespect. The plan changes unexpectedly, and you immediately assume disaster. A mistake appears in your work, and you immediately call yourself incapable. These judgments arise so naturally that most people mistake them for reality itself. Yet they are only interpretations. They become suffering only after you choose to embrace them without investigation. Imagine carrying a vessel filled with clean water through a crowded place. Every careless movement causes the water to spill. Your attention deserves even greater care. Every careless judgment spills a portion of your peace. Most people protect their possessions more carefully than they protect their own thinking. They would never hand their valuables to a stranger, yet they willingly surrender their emotional balance to passing opinions, careless remarks, uncertain predictions, and imagined futures. This habit quietly drains the strength they need for what truly matters. Peace grows where attention is trained. Whatever repeatedly receives your attention gradually shapes your character. If your attention constantly searches for insult, you will become suspicious. If it constantly searches for comfort, you will become fragile. If it constantly searches for fault in others, you will neglect your own correction. The direction of your attention eventually becomes the direction of your life. Therefore, choose carefully what deserves your sustained focus. Begin each morning before the demands of the day claim your mind. Sit in silence without rushing toward distraction. Ask yourself what kind of person you intend to become before evening arrives. Do not measure the day by how pleasant it may become. Measure it by how faithfully you intend to practice wisdom, justice, courage, and self-control, regardless of circumstances. This simple reflection prepares your judgment before events begin testing it. Then consider what difficulties may reasonably appear. Delays may happen. People may misunderstand you. Your efforts may not receive recognition. Unexpected obstacles may interrupt your plans. None of these possibilities deserve surprise because they belong to ordinary human life. When the mind prepares itself honestly, disappointment loses much of its force. You are no longer demanding that reality behave according to your preferences. You are preparing yourself to respond well to reality as it truly is. Throughout the day, remain watchful over the conversations taking place inside your own mind. Most people hear only the voices around them while ignoring the constant dialogue shaping every decision they make. Listen carefully to the judgments you quietly repeat. Perhaps you often tell yourself that you never have enough time. Perhaps you repeatedly insist that other people prevent your happiness. Perhaps you convince yourself that one failure defines your entire worth. These statements deserve examination because repeated thoughts eventually become deeply rooted beliefs. Whenever your mind begins making broad conclusions, pause immediately. Ask whether your judgment has become larger than the evidence before you. One difficult conversation does not prove that every relationship is broken. One disappointment does not prove that hope is foolish. One mistake does not erase years of honest effort. The undisciplined mind enjoys absolute conclusions because they require little thought. Reason prefers careful distinctions because truth is rarely careless. There is another habit that quietly destroys peace. It is the habit of arguing with reality. The mind continually says, this should not have happened. That person should have behaved differently. This situation should have been easier. These thoughts appear harmless, yet they create endless resistance against what has already taken place. No amount of complaint can rewrite yesterday. No amount of resentment can alter another person's character. Every moment spent demanding a different past is a moment stolen from present responsibility. Acceptance does not mean approving every event. It means recognizing what has already become real. Once reality is accepted, reason becomes free to ask the only useful question: what is now required of me? This question restores your attention to the place where meaningful action remains possible. Complaints weaken action because they chain the mind to circumstances beyond its authority. Responsibility strengthens action because it directs effort toward your own conduct. Many people confuse emotional intensity with sincerity. They believe that greater worry proves greater care. They imagine constant anxiety demonstrates responsibility, yet anxiety often distracts from thoughtful action instead of supporting it. The peaceful mind is not indifferent. It simply refuses to waste energy fighting battles that exist only inside imagination. Calm judgment produces clearer decisions than restless emotion ever could. Throughout your day, you will encounter moments that invite irritation. Someone speaks impatiently. Traffic interrupts your schedule. A plan fails unexpectedly. Observe what happens inside your mind before anything escapes your lips. You will notice an immediate impulse demanding reaction. That impulse is not your master. It is merely the first movement of the mind. Between that first movement and your final response lies the space where character is formed. Expand that space deliberately. Let reason enter before speech follows. Your inner life becomes orderly through repeated acts of careful correction rather than dramatic moments of transformation. Every time you replace assumption with examination, you strengthen wisdom. Every time you replace complaint with responsibility, you strengthen courage. Every time you replace impulse with thoughtful restraint, you strengthen self-command. These victories may appear small, yet character is built from such moments. A peaceful life is never assembled through accident. It is patiently constructed through disciplined choices, repeated over many ordinary days. One of the greatest obstacles to peace is the desire to control what never belonged to you. You cannot command another person's opinions. You cannot guarantee perfect health. You cannot secure permanent success. You cannot remove uncertainty from tomorrow. Yet many people spend their lives mentally negotiating with these realities as though determination alone could reshape them. Their frustration grows because they demand authority over what has always remained outside their reach. Instead, return your attention to what genuinely belongs to you. Your honesty belongs to you. Your fairness belongs to you. Your perseverance belongs to you. Your willingness to act with integrity belongs to you. These things remain available regardless of external conditions. When your satisfaction depends upon practicing these qualities rather than controlling outcomes, your peace gains a foundation that circumstances cannot easily disturb. There is great value in examining the motives hidden beneath your actions. Ask yourself why certain criticisms affect you so deeply. Ask why particular failures linger in your thoughts. Ask why praise feels necessary before your work seems worthwhile. Often you will discover that your suffering grows from invisible demands you have placed upon life. You expected constant approval. You expected certainty. You expected comfort. Once these hidden expectations are exposed, they lose much of their influence because reason finally sees them clearly. As evening arrives, resist the temptation to let the day disappear without reflection. Sit quietly and review your conduct with complete honesty. Do not search first for the faults of others. Search your own responses. Where did your judgment remain steady? Where did emotion overrule wisdom? Which assumptions proved false? Which reactions deserve improvement tomorrow? This examination is an act of responsibility rather than punishment. The person unwilling to review his own conduct remains a stranger to himself. During this evening reflection, avoid harsh self-condemnation. Self-hatred teaches nothing. Honest correction teaches everything. If you discover weakness, acknowledge it without excuse. If you discover progress, accept it without pride. Your task is neither to flatter nor to insult yourself. Your task is to see yourself accurately. Accuracy is the beginning of wisdom because improvement becomes possible only after illusion disappears. Over time, this daily examination reshapes the architecture of your mind. Situations that once created immediate frustration begin receiving calmer responses. Events that once dominated your thoughts lose their power more quickly. You become slower to judge and quicker to understand. You notice the difference between facts and interpretations. You discover that much of your former suffering was produced not by circumstances but by unquestioned conclusions. Peace also requires guarding the quality of what enters your mind. Every conversation, every habit, every form of entertainment leaves some impression upon your judgment. Ask whether what you repeatedly consume strengthens reason or encourages distraction. A mind constantly filled with noise struggles to hear wisdom. Deliberately create periods of silence where your own thoughts may be examined without interruption. Silence often reveals patterns that constant activity keeps hidden. Do not measure your progress by the complete absence of difficult emotions. Such a goal misunderstands human nature. Measure progress by the speed with which reason restores proper judgment after emotion appears. Fear may still arrive. Anger may still knock at the door. Disappointment may still visit unexpectedly. Growth appears when these visitors no longer occupy your house for long, because disciplined thought gently escorts them away. Remember that every day offers another opportunity to refine your inner life. Yesterday's failures need not dictate today's conduct. Tomorrow's uncertainties need not disturb today's responsibilities. Your attention belongs here, within the present moment where choice remains alive. The past can instruct you but cannot command you. The future deserves preparation but not surrender. Only the present allows virtue to become action. There will be times when your efforts seem unnoticed. Continue practicing anyway. There will be days when old habits return with surprising strength. Resume your discipline without discouragement. There will be moments when peace feels distant, despite sincere effort. Persist patiently. Lasting character develops through consistency rather than dramatic breakthroughs. Every careful judgment strengthens the next. Every honest examination clears another portion of the mind. Understand that the greatest victory is not persuading the world to become easier. The greatest victory is becoming the kind of person whose judgment remains steady even when the world refuses to cooperate. Such steadiness cannot be purchased, inherited, or borrowed. It must be earned through repeated acts of thoughtful attention and unwavering honesty toward oneself. From this moment forward, become the careful guardian of your own thinking. Welcome each morning as an opportunity to prepare your judgment before circumstances challenge it. Welcome each evening as an opportunity to correct whatever reason reveals. Let every difficulty become another occasion to strengthen your understanding instead of weakening your peace. The disciplined mind does not wait for a perfect life before becoming calm. It creates calm by refusing to surrender its judgment to confusion, fear, or habit. That is the work before you today, and no external event can prevent you from beginning it. Number 4. Master your emotions instead of chasing constant romantic validation. There is a quiet danger that many people never recognize until years of their life have already been shaped by it. They begin believing that their emotional state should rise and fall according to whether another person notices them, desires them, or chooses them. From that moment forward, they no longer govern themselves. Their peace becomes a reflection of someone else's attention. Their confidence depends upon another person's approval. Their mood follows messages, compliments, silence, and rejection, as though these passing events possess authority over the soul. This is not love, it is the surrender of inner government. Ask yourself a difficult question with complete honesty. How often has your emotional balance depended upon another person's response rather than your own character? How many mornings began with calm only to be disturbed because someone failed to answer as quickly as you expected? How many evenings became restless because another person's opinion carried greater weight than your own judgment? These moments deserve careful examination because they reveal where your freedom has quietly been exchanged for dependence. No person enters this world with the responsibility of maintaining your inner stability. That task belongs entirely to you. When you expect another human being to remove your insecurity, erase your uncertainty, or confirm your worth each day, you ask them to perform work that no one can successfully accomplish. Human beings are limited. Their attention changes, their circumstances change, their emotions change. If your peace is built upon something that changes constantly, your peace will change constantly as well. Many people confuse affection with proof of value. They believe that being desired confirms they are worthy and that being overlooked proves they are lacking. This belief does not arise from reason, it arises from an undisciplined judgment that has never been questioned. Worth has never been measured by how many people admire you. Worth has always been measured by the quality of your own character. If you abandon justice, honesty, courage, and self-command in order to receive affection, you have traded something permanent for something uncertain. Observe how quickly the mind creates unnecessary suffering. Someone seems distant for a single day, and the imagination immediately begins inventing explanations. Every silence becomes rejection. Every delay becomes evidence of failure. Every small change becomes a threat. Nothing has actually been confirmed, yet the emotions have already accepted these imagined conclusions as truth. The disturbance did not come from reality. It came from judgment reaching its verdict before evidence had even arrived. This is why your first discipline must be directed toward your own thinking rather than toward another person's behavior. You cannot command another person's feelings. You cannot force consistency where none exists. You cannot guarantee lasting affection. Yet you remain fully responsible for how you interpret each circumstance. Before accepting any conclusion, pause and ask yourself whether you are responding to facts or merely reacting to assumptions. This question alone prevents countless unnecessary wounds. Emotions deserve respect, but not unquestioned authority. They signal that something within you requires attention, yet they should never become the final judge of your conduct. Fear may appear when affection seems uncertain. Jealousy may arise when comparison enters your thoughts. Sadness may follow disappointment. These experiences are part of being human, but they become destructive only after reason quietly steps aside and allows them to govern every decision that follows. Imagine allowing every passing cloud to determine the direction of your journey. You would never arrive anywhere because your path would change each hour. Many people live exactly this way with their emotions. One pleasant conversation fills them with confidence. One uncomfortable interaction fills them with doubt. One compliment creates hope. One criticism destroys it. They have mistaken emotional weather for reliable guidance. A disciplined life requires something steadier than changing feelings. Begin by recognizing the difference between emotion and judgment. Emotion arrives without invitation. Judgment chooses whether that emotion deserves agreement. This distinction restores responsibility to where it belongs. You cannot always prevent disappointment from appearing, but you can prevent disappointment from rewriting your principles. You cannot stop loneliness from visiting, but you can refuse to let loneliness persuade you to accept dishonorable conduct simply to avoid temporary discomfort. Many unhealthy relationships begin long before two people ever meet. They begin inside the mind of someone who has already decided that happiness depends upon being chosen. Such a belief quietly shapes every conversation, every compromise, and every decision. Standards become weaker because approval seems more important than integrity. Boundaries disappear because abandonment appears more frightening than self-betrayal. Eventually, the person no longer recognizes their own character because every choice has been made in service of keeping someone else's attention. The disciplined mind refuses this exchange. It understands that preserving integrity carries greater value than preserving admiration. If another person respects honesty, fairness, patience, and self-command, then mutual respect may grow naturally. If another person requires you to abandon these qualities in order to remain accepted, then no lasting good can come from that attachment. Your principles should never become negotiable simply because your emotions feel uncomfortable. Each morning, before engaging with anyone else, establish your own foundation. Do not begin the day by asking whether others appreciate you. Begin by asking whether you intend to act with dignity regardless of how others respond. Decide that patience will remain your guide even if others become impatient. Decide that truthfulness will remain your standard even if deception appears easier. Decide that kindness will remain your practice even if kindness receives no immediate reward. In this way, your emotional state begins resting upon your own conduct rather than external reactions. Throughout the day, pay close attention to moments when your emotions become unusually intense. Instead of immediately following them, investigate them. Ask yourself, what expectation has been threatened? Perhaps you expected constant reassurance. Perhaps you expected perfect understanding. Perhaps you expected another person to remove every uncertainty from your life. Once the hidden expectation becomes visible, much of its power begins to fade because reason finally has something concrete to examine. The mind often mistakes attention for affection and affection for security, yet these are not identical. Someone may give you endless attention while possessing little virtue. Someone may genuinely care for you while remaining imperfect and occasionally distracted. If your emotional balance depends upon constant external confirmation, no amount of attention will ever satisfy you because each reassurance creates the desire for another. The appetite grows stronger through repeated feeding rather than weaker. Consider how exhausting such dependence becomes. Every conversation becomes an examination of your worth. Every silence becomes a threat. Every misunderstanding becomes evidence that something precious is slipping away. Instead of enjoying another person's company, you become occupied with protecting your own insecurity. The relationship slowly transforms into a place where fear speaks louder than reason. Freedom begins when you stop asking another person to answer questions that only your own character can answer. Am I worthy? Your conduct answers that. Am I capable of living well? Your discipline answers that. Am I becoming wiser? Your daily choices answer that. No amount of praise can replace these answers because praise belongs to another person's opinion, while character belongs entirely to you. There is great strength in learning to admire another person without becoming emotionally possessed by their approval. Appreciation remains healthy when it allows both people to remain governed by virtue rather than dependence. Genuine affection encourages growth in both lives. Emotional dependence quietly weakens both because each begins carrying responsibilities that belong elsewhere. One demands constant reassurance, the other feels pressured to provide endless certainty. Neither task reflects wisdom. Practice observing your emotional reactions without immediately identifying yourself with them. Instead of saying, "I am rejected," Recognize that you are experiencing the feeling of rejection. Instead of declaring "I am worthless," notice that your mind has produced a judgment requiring careful examination. This small change in perspective creates enough distance for reason to resume its proper place. You become the observer of your inner life rather than its unwilling prisoner. There will be moments when affection is not returned despite sincere intention. Accept this possibility before life forces it upon you. Another person's heart has never belonged to your control. You may act honorably, you may speak honestly, you may behave with kindness and respect. Beyond that, the outcome belongs elsewhere. Clinging to what was never yours creates suffering that no amount of effort can remove. Peace returns when your attention settles upon the quality of your own conduct, instead of demanding ownership over another person's choices. Each evening, perform a careful examination of your emotional life. Ask yourself where emotion served wisdom and where emotion attempted to replace it. Notice whether your conversations were guided by calm judgment or by fear of losing approval. Observe whether you remained faithful to your principles even when your feelings urged compromise. This review should be neither harsh nor indulgent. It should simply reveal reality with accuracy. You may discover that much of what you called love was actually fear of being alone. You may realize that what appeared to be devotion was often anxiety seeking relief. These discoveries should not discourage you. They should encourage you, because what can be clearly seen can finally be corrected. Hidden errors remain powerful. Exposed errors become opportunities for growth. Remember that emotional maturity does not require becoming cold or distant. It requires becoming governed by reason while remaining fully capable of genuine care. You can value another person's presence without making them responsible for your peace. You can enjoy companionship without believing your identity disappears in its absence. You can experience affection deeply while remembering that virtue remains your highest commitment. Guard yourself carefully against comparison. The mind easily becomes disturbed when it measures its value against the relationships of others. You see appearances without knowing realities. You witness celebrations without witnessing private struggles. Comparison encourages dissatisfaction because it directs attention away from your own responsibilities towards circumstances that belong entirely to someone else. Return your focus to your own character whenever comparison appears. Emotional discipline also requires moderation in imagination. Do not allow your thoughts to spend endless hours inventing conversations, predicting rejection, or constructing perfect futures that reality has never promised. The imagination becomes dangerous when it begins replacing the present with endless speculation. Bring your attention back to today's responsibilities. The present offers opportunities for virtue. Imagined futures offer only uncertainty. There will always be moments when your heart feels vulnerable. Accept this without shame. Vulnerability itself is not weakness. The weakness appears only when fear persuades you to abandon reason. Let your emotions inform you without allowing them to command you. Listen carefully, but decide deliberately. This is how inner strength quietly develops over time. As your discipline deepens, you will notice a remarkable change. Compliments become pleasant without becoming necessary. Rejection becomes painful without becoming destructive. Silence loses its power to frighten you because your mind no longer fills every quiet moment with fearful conclusions. Your emotional life becomes steadier because its foundation has shifted from uncertain approval to dependable character. The greatest relationship you will ever govern is the one between your reason and your emotions. If reason remains awake, emotions become valuable companions that enrich human experience without overthrowing wisdom. If reason falls asleep, emotions quickly assume authority they were never meant to possess. Therefore, protect your judgment with greater care than you protect your reputation, your appearance, or your popularity. Leave today with one commitment that requires no permission from anyone else. Refuse to measure your worth by another person's attention. Refuse to surrender your principles for temporary reassurance. Refuse to interpret every emotional impulse as undeniable truth. Instead, return again and again to disciplined judgment. Let your actions reflect integrity before your feelings seek comfort. Let your peace arise from living honorably rather than from being constantly admired. When your emotions learn to follow reason instead of ruling it, you become capable of genuine affection without sacrificing the freedom of your own soul. Number 5. Choose virtue above pleasure and protect your freedom every day. Every day your life is shaped by a series of quiet decisions that rarely attract attention. Most of them appear insignificant while they are happening. You choose whether to speak truthfully or to protect your image. You choose whether to remain patient or surrender to irritation. You choose whether to complete your duty or postpone it for comfort. These moments seem ordinary, yet they slowly determine the kind of person you become. Character is not created during rare moments of crisis. It is revealed through the repeated choices made when no one is watching. Many people believe freedom means having unlimited opportunities to pursue whatever feels pleasant. They measure success by how few restrictions remain upon their desires, yet look honestly at the lives of those who follow every impulse. Their emotions direct them. Their cravings interrupt them. Their habits dominate them. Their peace disappears whenever comfort becomes unavailable. This is not freedom. It is dependence disguised as independence. A person ruled by pleasure is no less controlled than a person ruled by fear. Both have surrendered authority over themselves. You must begin by correcting a common mistake. Pleasure is not evil, but neither is it the purpose of life. It arrives and departs according to circumstances that often lie beyond your control. If you build your happiness upon something so changeable, instability becomes inevitable. The wiser path is to place your attention upon what remains available in every situation. Honesty remains possible in success and failure. Courage remains possible during comfort and hardship. Justice remains possible whether others behave fairly or not. Self-command remains possible whenever temptation appears. These qualities belong to your own choices, and for that reason they deserve greater loyalty than passing satisfaction. Observe your own mind carefully throughout a single day. Notice how often it quietly asks one question without your awareness. What will make me feel good right now? This question appears harmless until it becomes your constant guide. It persuades you to avoid difficult conversations. It encourages unnecessary delay. It weakens your commitment when effort becomes uncomfortable. Slowly, your entire life begins revolving around immediate relief instead of lasting excellence. You no longer ask what is right. You ask only what feels easiest. A disciplined life begins when you replace that question with another. What action reflects the highest quality of character available to me in this moment? This question immediately changes the direction of your thinking. It shifts your attention away from temporary comfort and toward permanent improvement. Even if the answer requires effort, sacrifice, or patience, you have already regained something more valuable than convenience. You have regained the ability to direct yourself through reason. Pleasure often promises more than it can ever deliver. It whispers that one small compromise will solve your discomfort. It assures you that discipline can wait until tomorrow. It convinces you that principles may be adjusted just this once without consequence. Yet every unnecessary compromise leaves a mark upon character. One neglected duty makes the next neglect easier. One dishonest word prepares the way for another. One surrendered principle gradually weakens your trust in yourself. Eventually, you begin wondering why confidence has disappeared, forgetting that confidence grows only where integrity has been consistently protected. The strongest person is not the one who never encounters temptation. The strongest person is the one who recognizes temptation without surrendering judgment. Every difficult choice offers an opportunity to strengthen the inner life. Whenever pleasure invites you to abandon responsibility, pause before answering. Do not ask whether the invitation feels attractive. Ask whether accepting it leaves your character stronger or weaker. This single habit transforms ordinary decisions into daily exercises of freedom. Many people spend years trying to escape discomfort without realizing that discomfort often serves as an excellent teacher. Honest work becomes uncomfortable before it becomes rewarding. Patience becomes uncomfortable before it becomes natural. Self-restraint becomes uncomfortable before it becomes strength. If you avoid every challenge simply because it demands effort, you also avoid the very conditions through which character develops. The mind that constantly seeks ease gradually loses its capacity to endure ordinary hardship. This does not mean you should deliberately search for unnecessary suffering. Wisdom requires balance rather than excess. The lesson is simpler. Do not reject what is right merely because it demands effort. Let effort become familiar instead of frightening. Each time you willingly fulfill a difficult duty despite temporary discomfort, you prove that pleasure no longer governs your decisions. Begin every morning by identifying one virtue you intend to protect throughout the coming day. Perhaps you choose patience, perhaps honesty, perhaps moderation, perhaps courage. Keep this single commitment before your attention as circumstances unfold. When unexpected situations arise, measure your response against that chosen principle rather than against your changing emotions. This morning preparation quietly strengthens your judgment before temptation has an opportunity to confuse it. As the day progresses, interruptions will arrive exactly as life has always arranged them. Someone may challenge your opinion. Fatigue may weaken your enthusiasm. Convenience may compete with responsibility. At these moments, remember that your task is not to control events. Your task is to preserve the quality of your own conduct, regardless of events. This distinction protects freedom because it prevents external circumstances from deciding your inner condition. There is a subtle form of slavery that often escapes notice. It appears whenever your satisfaction depends entirely upon pleasant outcomes. If success alone makes you peaceful, failure immediately becomes your master. If comfort alone makes you content, discomfort immediately gains authority over you. If praise alone gives you confidence, criticism instantly steals it away. Whatever you require for happiness eventually gains power over your life. Therefore, choose carefully what you allow to become necessary. Virtue asks for very little from the outside world. It requires only your willingness to choose correctly. This makes it remarkably secure. No difficult colleague can prevent you from acting honestly. No financial setback can prevent fairness. No disappointment can prevent self-control. Circumstances may limit many things, but they cannot force you to abandon your principles without your own agreement. This realization quietly restores enormous strength because it places your greatest possession back into your own hands. Pay close attention to the language you use during moments of temptation. The undisciplined mind often says everyone behaves this way. It says no one will notice. It says this shortcut saves time. It says tomorrow will be better. These arguments rarely seek truth. They seek permission. They attempt to disguise convenience as wisdom. Learn to recognize these conversations before they persuade you. Whenever an excuse appears, examine it as carefully as you would examine advice from a stranger whose motives remain unknown. Another daily practice deserves your commitment. Before making any important decision, imagine its effect upon your future character rather than its immediate reward. Ask yourself what kind of person repeated choices like this would gradually create. Would they produce greater honesty or greater compromise? Greater courage or greater avoidance, greater steadiness or greater dependence? Character always develops in the direction of repeated action. Every decision becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Many people regret obvious mistakes while ignoring the quieter habits that prepared those mistakes long before they occurred. Major failures rarely appear without warning. They are often built from countless smaller permissions granted over many months. Neglected discipline eventually produces neglected integrity. Careless thinking eventually produces careless conduct. Protect yourself early by correcting the smallest departures from reason before they become established patterns. The pursuit of pleasure often encourages comparison because it constantly asks whether someone else possesses more comfort, greater success, or stronger admiration. Comparison quickly destroys gratitude because it trains the mind to overlook present responsibilities while chasing imagined advantages. Return your attention instead to the duties already placed before you. Your task has never been to possess another person's circumstances. Your task has always been to fulfill your own responsibilities with excellence. Guard yourself, especially against pleasures that promise escape from self-examination. Endless distraction feels attractive because it postpones honest reflection. Constant entertainment appears harmless because it fills every silent moment. Yet silence serves an important purpose. It allows you to hear the condition of your own mind without interruption. A person afraid of quiet often discovers that he has been avoiding himself rather than merely avoiding boredom. Reserve time each evening to examine the choices made throughout the day. Do not begin by asking whether the day felt enjoyable. Begin by asking whether it was honorable. Where did you remain faithful to your principles despite difficulty? Where did convenience quietly replace integrity? Which decisions strengthened freedom? Which decisions surrendered it? This review transforms ordinary experience into lasting instruction because every day becomes a teacher rather than merely another passing date on the calendar. When reviewing your conduct, avoid the temptation to defend yourself unnecessarily. The ego prefers explanations over correction. It quickly blames pressure, circumstances, or other people. Refuse this habit. Accept responsibility wherever reason reveals genuine error. Honest acknowledgement weakens the hold of future mistakes because it prevents self-deception from becoming permanent. You will sometimes discover that choosing virtue carries immediate cost. Others may misunderstand your refusal to compromise. Patience may appear slower than anger. Truthfulness may seem less profitable than deception. Discipline may feel less enjoyable than indulgence. Accept these temporary losses without resentment. They are small compared with the lasting damage produced by abandoning your principles for temporary advantage. Remember that no outward success can compensate for inward disorder. A comfortable life loses much of its value if obtained through dishonorable means. A respected reputation remains fragile if built upon hidden compromise. Lasting security arises only when your actions consistently agree with your deepest convictions. Then your conscience no longer wages war against your conduct. Inner agreement becomes one of the greatest forms of peace available to any human being. There will be mornings when discipline feels effortless, and evenings when temptation seems unusually persistent. Neither condition should determine your commitment. Continue practicing regardless of changing moods. Freedom grows through consistency rather than enthusiasm. Your emotions may fluctuate from day to day, but your principles should remain dependable. This reliability gradually becomes part of your identity until choosing what is right no longer feels exceptional but natural. Never believe that protecting your freedom requires extraordinary opportunities. It requires ordinary vigilance. It appears when you speak honestly despite personal cost. It appears when you complete necessary work without waiting for motivation. It appears when you refuse resentment despite being treated unfairly. It appears when you choose moderation despite abundant opportunity for excess. These quiet victories rarely receive applause, yet they build the strongest kind of life. Understand clearly what is truly at stake. Every decision either strengthens your ability to govern yourself or weakens it. Every excuse either sharpens your judgment or dulls it. Every compromise either increases dependence upon pleasure or deepens commitment to virtue. Nothing remains neutral for long because repeated choices always leave their mark upon the soul. From this day forward, let your first loyalty belong to character rather than comfort. Let your daily satisfaction arise from acting well instead of merely feeling well. Welcome every difficult choice as another opportunity to prove that reason still occupies its rightful place within your life. Protect your integrity more carefully than your reputation. Protect your judgment more carefully than your possessions. Protect your freedom by refusing to place temporary pleasure above permanent virtue. When your life is directed by what is good instead of what is merely pleasant, no changing circumstance can easily rob you of your peace, because the greatest part of your happiness will always remain within your own power to preserve. Number 6. Examine your judgments before blaming loneliness for your suffering. Before you declare that loneliness is the cause of your suffering, stop and examine the judgment that produced that conclusion. A quiet room does not wound the mind by itself. An empty chair does not possess the power to disturb your peace. Time spent without company carries no opinion about your worth. Yet many people experience these ordinary conditions and immediately conclude that something is missing from their lives. The suffering begins not with solitude itself, but with the meaning the mind hastily assigns to it. If you fail to examine that meaning, you will spend years trying to escape a condition that was never your true enemy. The mind has a habit of placing blame upon whatever stands closest to discomfort. When sadness appears during a season of being alone, loneliness becomes the obvious suspect. Yet appearances often conceal deeper causes. Ask yourself whether the pain truly comes from the absence of another person or from the belief that your life cannot be complete without one. These are entirely different questions. One concerns circumstance, the other concerns judgment. Circumstances do not possess the authority to define your inner condition. Judgments do. Many people never pause long enough to notice the quiet statements they repeat to themselves. They tell themselves that everyone else has already found happiness. They tell themselves that being alone is evidence of failure. They tell themselves that life cannot begin until someone chooses them. These thoughts settle into the mind unnoticed because they are repeated so often. Eventually they stop sounding like opinions and begin sounding like facts. Yet they remain opinions until reason carefully examines them. You must become suspicious of conclusions that appear immediately. The fastest judgment is rarely the wisest one. The mind prefers quick explanations because they spare it the effort of deeper examination. It is easier to say that loneliness ruined your peace than to ask whether your expectations have quietly become unreasonable. Honest reflection requires patience. It asks you to question beliefs that have become familiar. That work is uncomfortable, yet freedom begins there. Consider two people spending the same evening alone. One feels calm, productive, and grateful for the opportunity to think clearly. The other feels abandoned, restless, and convinced that life is unfair. The circumstances remain nearly identical, yet the inner experience differs completely. If loneliness itself created suffering, both individuals would experience the same disturbance. The difference lies within judgment rather than environment. Once you understand this, you stop demanding that circumstances change before your peace can return. The disciplined mind refuses to accept its first interpretation without investigation. When loneliness appears, ask what exactly your mind has concluded. Has it declared that your future is hopeless? Has it assumed that your value depends upon companionship? Has it decided that temporary solitude will continue forever? These conclusions deserve careful questioning because they often rest upon imagination rather than evidence. The mind frequently mistakes possibility for certainty, then reacts emotionally to its own invention. There is another judgment that quietly increases suffering. It is the belief that comfort should always be present. Once this expectation becomes established, every uncomfortable emotion begins feeling like a personal injustice. You no longer see loneliness as one passing human experience among many. You begin treating it as proof that life has failed you. This expectation creates resistance against reality instead of understanding. Reality does not promise continuous emotional ease. It offers opportunities to exercise character under changing conditions. Whenever discomfort enters your mind, notice whether you immediately begin searching for someone or something to blame. This habit prevents growth because it directs attention outward instead of inward. You blame your circumstances, your past, other people, or your present situation. Meanwhile, the one place where genuine correction remains possible receives very little attention. Your own judgment waits quietly while blame travels in every other direction. A wiser response begins with a different question. Instead of asking why this is happening to me, ask what judgment inside me has transformed this event into suffering. This question returns responsibility to where it belongs. It does not deny pain. It examines the interpretation attached to pain. Once interpretation changes, emotional experience often changes with it. The external condition may remain exactly the same while the inner burden grows lighter. Mourning offers the best opportunity to prepare your judgment before emotions begin competing for your attention. Rise with the intention of governing your own thinking instead of allowing passing impressions to govern you. Before checking messages or measuring yourself against anyone else's life, spend a few quiet moments deciding which principles deserve your loyalty today. Resolve that your peace will depend upon honesty, patience, moderation, and clear judgment, rather than upon whether circumstances match your preferences. Then prepare yourself for the ordinary realities of human life. There may be moments when you wish for companionship. There may be conversations that never happen. There may be periods of silence. Accept these possibilities before they arrive. What is expected rarely possesses the power to shock the disciplined mind. Preparation reduces unnecessary disturbance because it reminds you that no season remains permanent. As your day unfolds, pay careful attention to the language of your own thoughts. When the mind says, "I am alone, therefore I cannot be happy," pause immediately. Separate the observable fact from the judgment attached to it. The observable fact may simply be that you are spending this evening by yourself. Everything beyond that is interpretation. Reason asks whether the interpretation deserves agreement. Very often it does not. You may discover another hidden judgment beneath the first. Perhaps you believe that your worth depends upon being constantly included. Perhaps you have accepted the idea that being admired guarantees happiness. Perhaps you fear that silence exposes something lacking within you. These beliefs often remain hidden because they rarely announce themselves openly. They reveal themselves through repeated emotional reactions. Every recurring disturbance invites deeper examination if you are willing to look honestly. Do not confuse emotional intensity with truth. Strong feelings often persuade the mind that urgent action is required. Loneliness may urge you to seek immediate distraction, to lower your standards, or to chase attention simply to quiet temporary discomfort. Pause before obeying these impulses. Ask whether the proposed action strengthens your character or merely delays self-examination. Relief obtained through avoidance rarely lasts because the underlying judgment remains unchanged. Throughout the day, practice separating what belongs to your authority from what never has. Another person's affection belongs to their own judgment. The timing of future relationships belongs to circumstances beyond your command. Public opinion belongs entirely outside your control. Yet your integrity remains yours, your fairness remains yours, your discipline remains yours, your willingness to think clearly remains yours. When attention returns to these responsibilities, unnecessary frustration begins losing its influence. Many people spend years negotiating with reality instead of accepting it. They silently insist that life should unfold according to their preferred schedule. When events refuse to cooperate, resentment quietly grows, yet reality has never promised to satisfy personal timetables. It simply presents situations requiring wise responses. The sooner you release demands placed upon what cannot be commanded, the sooner your energy becomes available for meaningful action. Another useful exercise is to observe moments when comparison enters your thinking. Loneliness often becomes heavier after comparing your life with carefully selected images of others. The mind forgets that appearances reveal very little about another person's inner condition. You compare your private struggles with someone else's public presentation. Such comparison cannot produce wisdom because it rests upon incomplete understanding. Return your attention to your own conduct whenever comparison begins speaking. The habit of self-examination grows stronger through repetition. During quiet moments, ask yourself what belief has been guiding your reactions today. Did you assume that every pleasant life must include constant companionship? Did you assume that being single makes you less valuable? Did you assume that temporary circumstances define permanent identity? Write these judgments down if necessary. Seeing them clearly often reveals how little reason supports them. As evening approaches, refuse to let the day disappear without careful review. Sit quietly and revisit your responses rather than merely your experiences. Ask where you interpreted events wisely and where imagination quietly replaced evidence. Notice whether you allowed assumptions to shape your emotions without proper examination. Do not perform this review to criticize yourself. Perform it because unexamined patterns repeat themselves while examined patterns begin changing. You may discover that your greatest source of suffering was not loneliness at all. Perhaps impatience created more disturbance than solitude. Perhaps unrealistic expectations caused more pain than silence. Perhaps endless comparison exhausted you more than spending time alone. These discoveries are valuable because they redirect your effort toward the true source of difficulty rather than toward imagined causes. There is great strength in becoming a careful observer of your own judgments. Instead of reacting automatically, you begin noticing the small moment before agreement is given. In that moment, your freedom quietly returns. You realize that every impression requests your approval before it can shape your conduct. You are no longer carried wherever your first reaction leads. You become capable of choosing the judgment that best serves reason. This practice gradually changes the quality of your relationships as well. You stop expecting others to rescue you from conclusions you created yourself. You become slower to accuse, slower to assume, and slower to interpret ordinary events as personal rejection. Conversations become calmer because your mind no longer rushes towards unnecessary certainty. Patience replaces suspicion because judgment has learned to wait for evidence. Do not expect immediate perfection. Long-established habits rarely disappear after one day of honest effort. Some familiar thoughts will return repeatedly. Welcome each return as another opportunity to practice clearer judgment. Progress belongs not to the person who never struggles, but to the person who repeatedly chooses examination over assumption. Every thoughtful correction strengthens the mind for future challenges. Eventually, you will notice an important transformation. Solitude will no longer appear as an accusation against your life. It will become another circumstance through which character may be practiced. Quiet evenings become opportunities for reflection instead of evidence of failure. Time spent alone becomes useful because it allows careful attention to your own development without constant distraction. What once seemed like an enemy gradually becomes a place where wisdom matures. Protect this understanding carefully. The world will continue encouraging the belief that external conditions determine inner fulfillment. Resist that belief with steady judgment. Your peace has never depended upon possessing everything you desire. It has always depended upon governing the conclusions you draw about what you possess. This responsibility belongs entirely to you, and because it belongs to you, no passing circumstance can take it away without your consent. Leave today with one discipline firmly established. Whenever loneliness attempts to convince you that it alone has created your suffering, refuse to accept the accusation immediately. Turn inward before turning outward. Examine the judgment before blaming the circumstance. Separate observable facts from imagined conclusions. Return your attention to what remains within your authority. Correct your thinking before seeking to change your surroundings. The more faithfully you practice this discipline, the more you will discover that the greatest prison was never solitude itself. It was the unexamined judgment that quietly followed it wherever you went. Once reason begins guiding those judgments, your freedom no longer waits for different circumstances. It begins in the very moment you choose to see clearly. Number 7. Strengthen your mind until approval from others becomes unnecessary. One of the greatest obstacles to a peaceful life is not criticism. It is the quiet belief that you must be approved before you can stand firmly within yourself. This belief enters the mind so gradually that most people never question it. They begin adjusting their words to avoid disapproval. They reshape their decisions to gain acceptance. They silence honest convictions because they fear being misunderstood. Eventually, they no longer recognize which choices belong to reason and which belong to the endless pursuit of approval. A life governed this way may appear successful from the outside, yet it remains inwardly dependent upon judgments that never belonged to its control. Look carefully at your own conduct. How many decisions have been delayed because you wondered what others might think? How many opportunities have been abandoned because criticism seemed too uncomfortable? How many opinions have remained unspoken because agreement felt safer than honesty? These moments deserve your attention because they reveal where your freedom has quietly been exchanged for permission. Whenever another person's approval becomes necessary before you act according to reason, your inner authority begins slipping away. Human beings naturally live among other people. Respect, cooperation, and kindness remain essential duties, yet there is an important difference between living honorably with others and living as their emotional servant. One path preserves dignity while encouraging justice. The other places your peace into hands that cannot reliably protect it. No person possesses steady opinions every day. No crowd remains permanently satisfied. If your confidence depends upon their changing judgments, your confidence will change whenever their opinions do. Ask yourself a question that requires complete honesty. Who has been deciding your worth? Has it been your own conduct measured against virtue, or has it been the praise and criticism of those around you? If your answer depends upon applause, then your mind has accepted an unstable foundation. Praise arrives today and disappears tomorrow. Approval follows one decision and abandons the next. A wise person refuses to build permanent confidence upon something so uncertain. The mind often creates an invisible courtroom where every action is placed on trial before an imaginary audience. Before speaking, you anticipate their reaction. Before beginning meaningful work, you imagine their judgment. Before making a necessary decision, you rehearse possible criticism until hesitation replaces action. Most of these imagined judges never speak a single word. They exist only within your own thinking. Yet they influence countless choices because you have quietly granted them authority they never earned. The disciplined life begins when you remove that imagined audience from its place of power. This does not require becoming indifferent to wise advice. It requires learning to distinguish between guidance that improves character and opinions that merely satisfy vanity. Reason welcomes correction because correction strengthens judgment. Vanity seeks approval because approval comforts insecurity. Learn to recognize which voice is guiding your actions before you continue. Every morning, prepare yourself for the certainty that opinions will differ. Some people will misunderstand your intentions despite your honesty. Some will criticize your efforts despite your sincerity. Others may admire you for reasons that have nothing to do with your character. None of these responses should determine your inner condition because none of them belong to your authority. Begin the day by reminding yourself that your responsibility is not to manage another person's thoughts. Your responsibility is to govern your own actions with integrity. Carry this preparation into every conversation. Before entering work, family life, or social situations, quietly remind yourself that another person's approval is an external event. Like the weather, it may change without consulting your wishes. You may receive encouragement. You may receive silence. You may receive criticism. Let each possibility remain outside the center of your attention. Your task remains unchanged regardless of which one appears. Observe how quickly your emotions attempt to respond whenever approval seems uncertain. Someone overlooks your contribution and disappointment immediately appears. Another person praises someone else while ignoring your effort, and resentment quietly begins speaking. Pause before accepting these reactions as truth. Ask yourself, what judgment has produced them? Perhaps your mind concluded that recognition proves value. Perhaps it assumed that being unnoticed diminishes your worth. These conclusions deserve careful examination because they often guide behavior without ever proving themselves reasonable. The desire for approval grows strongest when you stop examining your own conscience. A person who rarely evaluates himself naturally begins depending upon the evaluations of others. If you do not know whether you are living well, every outside opinion begins feeling important. Yet once you faithfully examine your own conduct each day, the need for constant reassurance gradually weakens. Your conscience becomes informed by reason rather than by popularity. This is why daily self-examination holds such importance. Each evening, sit quietly and ask questions that no audience can answer for you. Did you act honestly today? Did you remain fair even when it was inconvenient? Did you allow irritation to overcome patience? Did fear persuade you to abandon what you knew was right? These questions reach deeper than public opinion because they measure the quality of your own character rather than the quality of someone else's approval. There will be moments when doing what is right leaves you standing alone. Prepare yourself for this possibility before it arrives. If you expect universal agreement, disappointment will quickly disturb your peace. But if you understand that reason sometimes requires unpopular choices, you will remain steady when approval disappears. Strength does not consist in defeating every critic. Strength consists in remaining faithful to sound judgment despite criticism. Many people unknowingly allow praise to control them just as completely as criticism. They become attached to admiration. They begin repeating only those actions that produce compliments. Gradually, they stop asking whether their conduct remains virtuous. They ask only whether it remains admired. This creates another form of dependence because the mind becomes addicted to pleasant opinions. Freedom requires releasing attachment to both praise and blame. Neither should possess authority greater than reason. Pay careful attention to your motives before every important action. Ask whether you are acting because the choice itself is honorable or because you hope someone will notice it. An act performed solely for recognition weakens character because its purpose lies outside your control. Recognition may come or it may not, yet an honorable action remains worthwhile regardless of who witnesses it. The value belongs to the action itself rather than to the applause that may follow. During the day, practice performing small acts of excellence without mentioning them unnecessarily. Complete your work carefully, even if no one observes your effort. Speak kindly without expecting gratitude. Keep promises even when breaking them would remain unnoticed. These quiet exercises strengthen independence because they teach the mind to value integrity above attention. Character grows strongest when it no longer depends upon being displayed. Another important discipline concerns criticism itself. When someone offers correction, do not reject it simply because it feels unpleasant. Examine it calmly. If the criticism reveals genuine weakness, accept the opportunity to improve without resentment. If it rests upon misunderstanding or unfair judgment, release it without anger. In either case, your peace remains protected because reason rather than emotion determines your response. The same principle applies to compliments. Accept kind words graciously without allowing them to define your identity. Appreciation may encourage you, but it should never become the foundation of your confidence. Otherwise, each compliment quietly increases your dependence upon receiving another. Gratitude for praise is healthy. Dependence upon praise is not. There are moments when silence from others will test your discipline more than open criticism. You may complete meaningful work that receives little recognition. You may offer kindness that goes unnoticed. You may remain faithful to your duties while others receive attention. Resist the temptation to conclude that unseen effort lacks value. Virtue never loses worth simply because fewer people acknowledge it. The quality of an action does not depend upon the number of witnesses present. As you continue this practice, notice how your attention begins shifting inward. Instead of constantly asking whether people approve of you, you begin asking whether your own conduct deserves approval from reason. This change marks an important stage of growth. External opinion no longer occupies the highest place within your mind. Inner examination quietly assumes that responsibility. Do not misunderstand this teaching. It does not encourage arrogance or isolation. It does not suggest ignoring wise counsel or refusing healthy relationships. It teaches something more balanced. Welcome guidance that strengthens character. Decline dependence that weakens judgment. Respect others without becoming emotionally governed by their changing opinions. Live among people without surrendering the government of your own mind. Comparison also deserves careful attention because it often disguises itself as a search for approval. You look at another person's achievements and quietly conclude that your own life has less value. You measure your progress against appearances rather than against your own responsibilities. This habit distracts you from the only comparison that truly matters. Are you becoming more disciplined than yesterday? Are your judgments becoming clearer? Are your actions becoming more consistent with virtue? These questions strengthen growth because they remain entirely within your own authority. Whenever the desire for approval becomes strong, pause and return to the distinction that protects every disciplined life. Another person's opinion belongs to them. Your response belongs to you. Their praise belongs to them. Your integrity belongs to you. Their misunderstanding belongs to them. Your patience belongs to you. Once this separation becomes clear, much unnecessary anxiety begins disappearing because you stop carrying responsibilities that were never yours. Practice moments of deliberate independence each day. Make one good decision that no one else will ever know about. Resist one unnecessary temptation without announcing your victory. Fulfill one difficult responsibility without seeking recognition afterward. These simple exercises quietly strengthen the habit of acting from principle rather than from visibility. Over time, the mind begins discovering satisfaction within the action itself instead of within public reaction. Even during seasons when you feel overlooked, continue building your character with unwavering commitment. Hidden effort is never wasted when it strengthens judgment. Quiet discipline leaves lasting marks upon the soul, even if no audience applauds its progress. The person who remains faithful in private becomes far more dependable than the one who performs excellence only when others are watching. As evening returns, complete your day with careful honesty. Review not how many people appreciated you, but how faithfully you governed yourself. Did you allow criticism to disturb your peace unnecessarily? Did admiration inflate your pride? Did fear of rejection alter your decisions? Where reason remained strong, preserve that habit. Where dependence reappeared, correct it tomorrow without discouragement. This daily review slowly transfers authority away from public opinion and back toward disciplined conscience. There will always be voices around you. Some will encourage, some will discourage, some will understand, others will never understand. Trying to control these voices will exhaust your life because they exist beyond your command. Governing your own judgments requires effort as well, but that effort always remains meaningful because it concerns something that truly belongs to you. The strongest mind is not the one that never hears praise or criticism. It is the one that hears both without surrendering its direction. It receives encouragement without becoming vain. It receives correction without becoming bitter. It continues choosing what is right even when recognition disappears. Such a person cannot easily be manipulated because approval no longer serves as the price of obedience. Leave this day with a single commitment firmly established within yourself. Let reason become the judge before whom your conduct is examined. Let virtue become the measure by which your worth is determined. Let daily self-examination replace constant dependence upon outside approval. Strengthen your mind until your peace no longer rises and falls with changing opinions. When your confidence rests upon disciplined character instead of borrowed admiration, you recover a freedom that no crowd can grant and no crowd can take away. Number 8. Practice self-sufficiency and discover lasting confidence within yourself. Many people spend their entire lives searching for confidence in places where confidence can never permanently exist. They search for it in admiration, in possessions, in status, in relationships, and in favorable circumstances. For a brief moment, these things seem to strengthen the spirit, yet the feeling quickly fades because it depends upon conditions that constantly change. When confidence rests upon what can be taken away, it is never truly yours. You remain anxious because you know, even if only quietly, that your sense of stability is borrowed rather than built. Real confidence begins when you stop asking the world to guarantee your peace and begin accepting responsibility for your own character. This is not a promise that life will become easier. It is something far more valuable. It is the understanding that your inner condition no longer has to depend upon whether events unfold according to your wishes. The world may remain uncertain, but your judgment can become steady. Circumstances may shift without warning, but your principles can remain unchanged. This is the beginning of self-sufficiency. Do not misunderstand what self-sufficiency means. It does not require rejecting friendship or refusing help whenever it is offered. Human beings naturally live among one another and share responsibilities. The error appears when you begin believing that your ability to live well depends entirely upon another person's presence, approval, or constant support. When your peace cannot survive a season of change without leaning upon someone else, your strength has not yet become your own. Ask yourself with complete honesty where your confidence disappears. Does it vanish when people disagree with you? Does it weaken when plans fail? Does it disappear whenever you face silence instead of encouragement? These moments reveal something important. They expose the places where your judgment has become attached to conditions beyond your authority. Wherever your confidence depends upon what you cannot govern, insecurity quietly waits. Many people say they lack confidence when what they truly lack is disciplined self-examination. They rarely ask whether their judgments deserve trust. Instead, they allow passing emotions to define their identity. One successful day convinces them they are capable. One difficult conversation convinces them they are inadequate. One mistake persuades them they are permanently flawed. Their opinion of themselves changes as quickly as the circumstances surrounding them. because it has never been anchored in reason. A disciplined mind refuses to let temporary experiences decide permanent conclusions. It understands that today's difficulty says very little about tomorrow's possibilities. It recognizes that failure is an event rather than an identity. It sees success as an opportunity to practice gratitude instead of pride. Confidence built upon this understanding remains steady because it depends upon judgment rather than fortune. The first exercise begins before the day has a chance to distract you. Rise each morning and quietly remind yourself that your greatest responsibility is not to control the events waiting ahead, but to govern the way you meet them. You cannot guarantee comfort. You cannot guarantee praise. You cannot guarantee favorable outcomes. Yet you can choose honesty before convenience. You can choose patience before irritation. You can choose disciplined effort before excuse. These choices belong entirely to you, and because they belong to you, they become reliable foundations for confidence. Prepare yourself each morning by asking a different question than most people ask. Instead of wondering whether today will treat you kindly, ask whether you intend to remain faithful to your principles regardless of what arrives. This single change transforms your expectations. You stop negotiating with the future and begin preparing your own character. You stop waiting for confidence to appear and begin creating it through deliberate conduct. As the day unfolds, pay careful attention to the moments when you instinctively seek reassurance. Perhaps you hesitate before making a decision because you hope someone else will approve it first. Perhaps you avoid speaking honestly because agreement feels safer than truth. Perhaps you constantly compare your progress with others before allowing yourself to feel satisfied. These habits quietly reveal dependence. They suggest that your own judgment has not yet earned your trust because you continually ask others to confirm what you should be examining yourself. Whenever you notice this habit, pause immediately. Do not condemn yourself. Simply ask whether the matter before you belongs to your own authority or to someone else's. If it concerns your character, your honesty, your effort, or your discipline, then another person's opinion cannot determine its value. If it concerns another person's reaction, then no amount of anxiety can place it under your control. This simple distinction removes countless unnecessary burdens from the mind. Many people carry invisible responsibilities that were never theirs to carry. They believe they must always be understood. They believe they must never disappoint anyone. They believe they must keep every relationship free from disagreement. These expectations create constant exhaustion because they require control over hearts and minds that have never belonged to them. Self-sufficiency begins when you release responsibilities that reason never assigned to you. There is another habit that quietly weakens confidence. It is the constant search for certainty before taking action. You wait until fear disappears before beginning difficult work. You wait until every possible outcome becomes predictable before making an important decision. You wait until everyone approves before following your conscience. This waiting never truly ends because complete certainty has never belonged to human life. A disciplined person acts according to reason despite uncertainty because he understands that hesitation often serves fear rather than wisdom. Confidence grows through action guided by principle rather than through endless preparation for perfect conditions. Every time you choose integrity despite uncertainty, your trust in yourself becomes stronger. Every time you fulfill a difficult responsibility despite discomfort, your character gains depth. The mind gradually learns that it can endure challenge without surrendering its values. This lesson cannot be borrowed from books or received through compliments. It must be lived repeatedly. Throughout the day, practice completing necessary tasks without demanding emotional enthusiasm beforehand. Many people believe they must first feel motivated before acting responsibly. This belief quietly hands authority to emotion. A disciplined life reverses the order. Right action comes first. Emotion follows where it chooses. Confidence develops because you repeatedly prove that your conduct no longer depends upon changing moods. Pay attention as well to the conversations taking place within your own mind. Some thoughts weaken confidence before any external difficulty has appeared. They insist that you are not ready. They predict failure before effort begins. They exaggerate past mistakes until they appear larger than your present abilities. These thoughts deserve examination rather than obedience. Ask whether they speak with evidence or merely with habit. Many familiar thoughts continue influencing conduct only because they have never been challenged by reason. When self-criticism appears, avoid two common errors. Do not immediately believe it, yet do not automatically reject it either. Examine it carefully. If it reveals genuine weakness, accept the opportunity for correction without resentment. If it exaggerates reality or mistakes temporary failure for permanent identity, dismiss it without guilt. Self-sufficiency requires honesty rather than harshness. It seeks accuracy instead of either pride or self-contempt. Another daily discipline strengthens inner independence. Deliberately spend time fulfilling responsibilities without seeking immediate recognition. Work carefully, even when your effort remains unnoticed. Keep your word even when breaking it would be easier. Practice moderation even when excess appears harmless. These actions quietly teach the mind that virtue possesses value independent of applause. Confidence rooted in character grows stronger every time integrity becomes its own reward. As evening approaches, resist the temptation to measure the day by comfort alone. Instead, ask yourself whether you governed your own conduct faithfully. Did you respond thoughtfully when difficulty appeared? Did you allow fear to interrupt honest action? Did you seek unnecessary reassurance instead of trusting disciplined judgment? These questions gradually replace emotional dependence with thoughtful responsibility. Do not perform this evening examination with the intention of proving your worth. Your worth does not depend upon perfection. Conduct this review because improvement requires accurate observation. The person who refuses to examine himself remains controlled by habits he no longer notices. The person who examines himself honestly gains the opportunity to reshape tomorrow through today's understanding. There will be days when confidence feels distant despite sincere effort. Continue your practice anyway. Lasting strength does not appear because emotions suddenly become pleasant. It appears because repeated discipline gradually changes the relationship between your judgments and your experiences. You begin trusting your ability to respond wisely rather than demanding that life become easier. This trust becomes more valuable than temporary comfort because it remains available in every circumstance. Remember that confidence built upon external success always remains vulnerable. Wealth may disappear, health may weaken, relationships may change, public opinion may shift unexpectedly. If these conditions alone support your peace, every change becomes a threat. Yet confidence rooted in disciplined judgment survives changing fortune because its foundation remains within your own authority. No difficult season can remove honesty from your reach. No disappointment can prevent patience. No setback can eliminate your opportunity to practice courage. Be careful not to confuse self-sufficiency with stubborn isolation. Wisdom recognizes when guidance deserves acceptance. Humility welcomes instruction that strengthens character. Self-sufficiency does not reject learning from others. It rejects dependence upon others for inner stability. You may receive advice with gratitude while remembering that the responsibility to choose rightly always returns to your own judgment. Comparison also deserves careful attention because it quietly steals confidence from those who permit it. The moment you begin measuring your worth against another person's achievements, appearance, or circumstances, you abandon the only comparison that truly matters. Ask instead whether today's conduct reflects greater wisdom than yesterday's. Ask whether your patience has grown stronger. Ask whether your judgments have become clearer. Growth measured against your own character always remains within your authority. There will be moments when loneliness attempts to convince you that you are incomplete. There will be seasons when uncertainty whispers that you cannot stand on your own. Meet these moments calmly. They are not commands, they are impressions asking for agreement. Examine them before accepting them. A mind trained by reason no longer believes every anxious thought simply because it arrives with conviction. Continue strengthening your ability to remain steady in ordinary circumstances. Accept small inconveniences without complaint. Complete unpleasant duties without delay. Practice speaking truthfully when easier words would protect your image. These ordinary exercises prepare you for greater challenges because character grows strongest through consistent practice rather than dramatic moments. Notice how your understanding begins changing over time. Confidence no longer depends upon constant success because failure becomes an opportunity for correction rather than condemnation. Solitude no longer appears threatening because your own company becomes guided by thoughtful reflection instead of restless judgment. Uncertainty no longer demands panic because you have learned to distinguish between what belongs to your authority and what never has. The greatest evidence of self-sufficiency is not the absence of difficulty. It is the quiet stability that remains while difficulty unfolds. It is the ability to lose comfort without losing integrity. It is the ability to experience disappointment without abandoning reason. It is the willingness to continue acting honorably even when immediate reward remains invisible. Such strength cannot be granted by fortune because fortune did not create it. Leave today with one clear commitment. Build your confidence where life cannot easily take it away. Place it within disciplined judgment, honest effort, patient endurance, and unwavering character. Return every morning to the work of governing your own mind before circumstances attempt to govern it for you. Return every evening to careful self-examination without excuse or self-deception. Let every ordinary decision become another opportunity to rely more deeply upon reason than upon changing conditions. As this practice continues, you will discover that lasting confidence was never hidden inside another person's approval or inside favorable events. It was waiting quietly within the disciplined mind that finally learned to trust itself by choosing virtue again and again. Number 9. Prepare your soul before inviting another person into your life. Before you invite another person into your life, ask whether you have become a trustworthy companion to yourself. This question is often avoided because it directs attention inward instead of outward. Many people spend years searching for the right relationship while giving very little attention to the condition of their own character. They hope another person will bring order to a mind that has never been disciplined. They hope affection will quiet fears that have never been examined. They hope companionship will repair habits that they have refused to confront. Yet no relationship can permanently accomplish the work that belongs to your own judgment. A relationship does not erase the condition of your inner life. It reveals it. If your mind is ruled by impatience, that impatience will appear in moments of disagreement. If your thinking is governed by fear, fear will shape your expectations. If you depend upon constant reassurance, that dependence will quietly follow you into every conversation. The presence of another person does not remove undisciplined habits. It gives those habits more opportunities to express themselves. Therefore, the wiser path is to prepare yourself before asking someone else to share your life. Many people believe loneliness ends when another person arrives. They confuse physical presence with inner peace. Yet countless people remain deeply unsettled while surrounded by companionship because the true source of their suffering has never been addressed. Wherever your own undisciplined judgments remain uncorrected, they will travel with you. You do not leave them behind by entering a relationship. You carry them into it. Examine the expectations you quietly place upon another human being. Do you expect someone else to remove every insecurity, Do you expect another person to protect you from disappointment? Do you expect constant agreement, endless understanding, or uninterrupted emotional comfort? These expectations ask another human being to perform a task that no human being can fulfill. They create burdens that eventually damage both people because they demand perfection where only ordinary humanity exists. The disciplined mind begins with a different understanding. Another person may enrich your life, encourage your growth, and share your responsibilities, yet they cannot become the foundation of your inner stability. That responsibility belongs to you alone. The moment you expect another person to govern your peace, you quietly surrender the work that reason assigned to your own character. Look honestly at the habits you practice each day while no one else is present. These habits reveal far more about your readiness than your hopes ever will. Do you keep your promises to yourself? Do you complete necessary responsibilities without constant encouragement? Do you respond thoughtfully when frustration appears? Do you correct your mistakes without excuse? These ordinary disciplines determine whether your character has become dependable. A dependable relationship begins with a dependable individual. Each morning, prepare your mind before preparing your plans. Sit quietly for a few moments and remind yourself that your first duty is not to secure another person's affection, but to strengthen your own judgment. Decide that honesty will guide your speech regardless of convenience. Decide that patience will guide your responses regardless of irritation. Decide that fairness will remain your standard even when emotions become unsettled. By making these commitments before the day begins, you train your character before circumstances begin testing it. As you move through the day, notice how often your emotions attempt to make decisions before reason has spoken. A delayed message may invite unnecessary suspicion. A misunderstood conversation may awaken defensiveness. A disappointed expectation may encourage resentment. Pause before accepting these first reactions. Ask what judgment has produced them. Very often the disturbance comes not from the event itself, but from the conclusion hastily attached to it. This practice becomes essential because relationships expose the speed of your judgments. If every uncertainty immediately becomes evidence of rejection, peace quickly disappears. If every disagreement becomes proof of failure, trust weakens. A disciplined person learns to separate facts from assumptions before allowing emotion to govern action. This single habit protects countless relationships from unnecessary conflict because it replaces impulsive reaction with thoughtful examination. Another important discipline concerns desire itself. It is natural to desire companionship, yet desire becomes dangerous when it abandons moderation. Once desire transforms into dependence, reason gradually loses authority. You begin overlooking clear warning signs because fear of being alone becomes stronger than commitment to wisdom. You tolerate conduct that violates your principles because immediate attachment seems more valuable than lasting integrity. A prepared soul refuses this exchange. It values virtue above emotional urgency. Ask yourself whether you are willing to remain faithful to your principles even if doing so delays the relationship you hope to find. This question reveals the strength of your character. Anyone can speak about values when nothing challenges them. Real discipline appears when desire attempts to persuade you that compromise is harmless. Hold firmly to honesty, justice, moderation, and self-command. These qualities protect not only your own peace but also the future health of every meaningful relationship. Throughout the day, continue practicing the distinction between what belongs to your authority and what does not. Your effort belongs to you. Your integrity belongs to you. Your willingness to communicate truthfully belongs to you. Another person's choices do not. Another person's emotions do not. Another person's final decisions do not. Confusion begins whenever you attempt to govern responsibilities that never belonged to your own judgment. Freedom returns whenever you release them. Many people unknowingly prepare extensively for finding a relationship while neglecting preparation for sustaining one. They develop appearance more carefully than character. They practice attracting attention more diligently than governing emotion. They spend far more time imagining future happiness than strengthening present discipline. Yet lasting companionship depends far less upon outward attraction than upon inward steadiness. Character quietly determines whether trust grows or slowly disappears. There is another habit that deserves careful correction. Do not expect another person to rescue you from responsibilities you have postponed. If you avoid self-examination while alone, you will likely avoid it together. If you struggle to govern anger now, companionship will not remove that struggle. If you refuse accountability today, tomorrow will not magically create it. The work delayed before a relationship usually returns with greater urgency after it begins. Practice becoming comfortable with honest silence. Spend time alone without immediately searching for distraction. Let quiet moments reveal the condition of your own thinking. Observe which fears appear when external noise disappears. Notice which complaints repeatedly return. Notice which desires demand immediate satisfaction. These observations provide valuable instruction because they expose the places where discipline remains unfinished. A prepared soul welcomes these discoveries because they create opportunities for correction. Each evening, conduct a careful examination of the day. Ask yourself whether your actions reflected the character you hope to bring into another person's life. Did impatience overcome kindness? Did pride interrupt humility? Did fear influence decisions that should have belonged to reason? Did you blame circumstances instead of correcting your own judgments? Answer these questions without harshness and without excuse. Honest evaluation creates lasting improvement because it replaces self-deception with understanding. When reviewing your conduct, do not measure success by whether someone noticed you or admired you. Measure it by whether your character became stronger. Did today's choices increase your capacity for fairness? Did they strengthen your self-command? Did they deepen your commitment to truth? These are the victories that remain valuable, regardless of changing circumstances, because they belong entirely within your authority. Prepare yourself also for disappointment, without allowing disappointment to become bitterness. Not every relationship will succeed. Not every hope will become reality. These possibilities belong to the ordinary conditions of human life. Refusing to accept them only increases unnecessary suffering. Acceptance does not mean indifference. It means recognizing that your responsibility remains the quality of your own response, rather than complete control over every outcome. Do not confuse emotional intensity with genuine readiness. Strong feelings may persuade you that immediate action is necessary, yet reason asks a quieter question. Does this decision strengthen virtue or merely satisfy temporary desire? Emotional urgency often fades with time. Character remains long after excitement has passed. Allow your choices to be guided by what remains enduring, rather than by what feels overwhelming in the present moment. A prepared soul also understands the importance of boundaries rooted in principle rather than fear. You need not accept conduct that undermines honesty, respect, or justice simply because you wish to avoid loneliness. Every unnecessary compromise weakens trust in your own judgment. Every decision guided by principle strengthens it. Confidence grows each time you prove that your values remain steady even when circumstances become emotionally difficult. As your understanding deepens, you begin approaching relationships with greater freedom. You no longer ask another person to complete what discipline should have completed within yourself. You no longer seek constant reassurance because your own conscience has become more dependable. You no longer expect perfection because you recognize your own continuing need for growth. This humility creates patience. This patience creates understanding. This understanding creates stronger foundations than emotional excitement alone could ever provide. Remember that every meaningful relationship joins two imperfect people who remain responsible for governing themselves. No one can perform another person's inner work. No amount of affection can replace personal discipline. No promise can eliminate the necessity of daily self-examination. The healthiest companionship grows between individuals who continue correcting themselves instead of constantly attempting to correct one another. There will be moments when waiting feels difficult. You may wonder why life has not unfolded according to your preferred timetable. Resist the temptation to treat waiting as wasted time. Waiting becomes valuable whenever it is used for preparation. Every day spent strengthening your judgment increases your ability to contribute wisely when the opportunity for companionship eventually arrives. A season devoted to character is never empty because it quietly shapes every future decision. Continue practicing ordinary acts of discipline while no audience is present. Speak truthfully even when silence would protect your image. Fulfill responsibilities even when no one praises your effort. Practice moderation when excess appears attractive. Choose patience when irritation seems justified. These daily exercises build the kind of stability that another person can trust because it does not depend upon changing emotion. The greatest preparation for any future relationship is not learning how to impress another person. It is learning how to govern yourself consistently. A mind directed by reason creates fewer unnecessary conflicts. A character rooted in virtue offers greater reliability. A person who accepts responsibility for his own judgments places less unfair pressure upon others. Such preparation benefits every area of life because it transforms the one element that always accompanies you, your own character. Leave today with one clear resolution. Do not measure readiness by how strongly you desire companionship. Measure it by how faithfully you govern yourself while companionship has not yet arrived. Prepare your mind before seeking agreement. Prepare your judgment before seeking affection. Prepare your character before seeking commitment. Return each morning to disciplined reflection. Return each evening to honest examination. Separate what belongs to your authority from what belongs to fortune. Strengthen the habits that no changing circumstance can remove. When another person eventually enters your life, let them encounter not someone searching to be completed, but someone who has already learned to stand firmly upon reason, virtue, and disciplined self-command. Number 10. Live with reason and become complete without depending on anyone. You often live as though completeness is something waiting outside of you, as though it must arrive through approval, through companionship, through success, or through circumstances finally aligning in your favor. This belief quietly places your peace in the hands of things you do not control. When those things change, your stability collapses with them. When they fail to appear, your mind turns restless. When they leave, you feel as though something essential has been taken from you. Yet nothing external was ever capable of completing what your own judgment had not yet learned to govern. To live with reason is to correct this error at its root. It is to recognize that your mind does not suffer because the world is harsh, but because your judgments have been unexamined. You interpret events and then forget that interpretation is your own act. You assume conclusions and then forget that assumptions can be revised. You react emotionally and then forget that reaction was preceded by a choice to agree with a thought. Reason restores what emotion obscures. It returns authority to the part of you that can observe rather than merely react. Every disturbance begins with a judgment that was accepted too quickly. Someone ignores you and you conclude that you are unimportant. A plan fails and you conclude that your effort was wasted. You are alone for a moment and you conclude that something is missing from your life. These conclusions feel immediate, but immediacy does not guarantee truth. The disciplined mind learns to pause at the point where impression becomes belief. That pause is where freedom lives. Begin each morning by reminding yourself that the day will not arrive in a perfect form. It will contain delays, misunderstandings, and moments that challenge your patience. This is not a misfortune. It is the natural structure of human life. Your task is not to control every outcome, but to govern your response to whatever arrives. By preparing your judgment before events unfold, you prevent surprise from becoming disturbance. As the day begins, examine your thinking before you act upon it. A thought appears that suggests urgency, fear, resentment, or desire. Do not accept it immediately. Ask whether it belongs to reason or to habit. Ask whether it is based on fact or interpretation. Ask whether acting upon it strengthens your character or weakens it. This brief examination separates clarity from confusion. Without it, you become governed by whatever impression arrives most loudly. Many people mistake dependence for connection. They believe they cannot be whole unless someone else provides validation, attention, or emotional security. Yet this belief places their inner stability outside their own control. If another person withdraws, their sense of worth collapses. If approval fades, their confidence disappears. If expectations are not met, their peace is lost. A life structured this way is fragile because it depends on forces that do not belong to you. To become complete without depending on anyone is not to reject others. It is to stop using them as the foundation of your identity. You may value companionship, appreciate support, and welcome affection, but you must not treat them as requirements for inner stability. Reason teaches that anything outside your judgment is uncertain. Only your own choices remain consistently available. Therefore, build your life upon what cannot be taken away by external change. Observe carefully how often your emotions attempt to assign meaning to events before reason has spoken. A delayed response becomes rejection. A disagreement becomes disrespect. A moment of silence becomes abandonment. These interpretations arise automatically, yet they are not truths. They are impressions seeking approval. If you do not examine them, they become beliefs. If they become beliefs, they shape your behavior without resistance. This is how the mind loses governance over itself. Reason interrupts this process. It asks you to slow down before agreeing with emotional interpretation. It reminds you that events are neutral until judgment assigns meaning. It teaches you to distinguish between what is happening and what you believe about what is happening. This distinction is the foundation of inner freedom. Without it, you live inside reactions. With it, you regain the ability to choose responses. Throughout the day, practice separating what belongs to your control from what does not. Your effort, your honesty, your discipline, and your attention belong to you. The opinions of others, the outcome of events, the timing of success, and the behavior of people around you do not. Confusion begins when you treat both categories as equal. Suffering grows when you attempt to govern what was never assigned to your authority. Peace begins when you stop carrying responsibilities that reason never placed upon your shoulders. You will notice that much of your discomfort comes from resisting this separation. The mind wants certainty in outcomes it cannot guarantee. It wants control over reactions it cannot command. It wants assurance that life will unfold according to preference. When reality refuses to comply, frustration appears. Yet frustration is not caused by reality itself. It is caused by expecting reality to behave according to imagination. A rational life replaces expectation with understanding. It does not demand that events become predictable. It accepts that unpredictability is part of existence. It focuses instead on maintaining clarity within uncertainty. This shift removes unnecessary conflict between mind and reality. Instead of arguing with what cannot be changed, you begin directing attention toward what can be improved within yourself. Practice observing your emotional reactions without immediately identifying with them. When irritation appears, notice it before acting. When fear arises, observe it before obeying it. When desire becomes intense, examine it before following it. These moments of awareness create space between impression and action. In that space, reason regains authority. Without that space, reaction governs behavior automatically. Another essential discipline is the daily examination of your own judgments. At the end of each day, review where your thinking remained clear and where it became distorted. Did you interpret situations accurately or allow assumption to replace observation? Did you respond according to principle or according to impulse? Did you remain guided by reason or carried by emotion? This review is not meant to create guilt. It is meant to increase awareness so that correction becomes possible. You may discover that many of your difficulties were not caused by external events, but by interpretations that were never questioned. A misunderstanding may have been treated as rejection. A delay may have been treated as failure. A moment of solitude may have been treated as deficiency. Once these interpretations are seen clearly, their influence weakens. What was once experienced as suffering becomes recognized as misjudgment. Reason does not remove emotion from life. It places emotion under guidance. Without reason, emotion becomes reactive and unstable. With reason, emotion becomes measured and appropriate. Anger can signal injustice without becoming destructive. Sadness can acknowledge loss without becoming despair. Desire can motivate action without becoming dependency. The goal is not emotional absence, but emotional governance. As you continue this practice, you will notice that your need for external validation begins to diminish. This does not happen suddenly. It happens gradually as your own judgment becomes more trustworthy. When you consistently act according to reason, you no longer require constant reassurance that you are acceptable. Your own conduct becomes sufficient evidence of your direction. Inner stability replaces external approval as the source of confidence. This transformation also changes the way you relate to others. You no longer approach people as sources of completion. You approach them as fellow individuals navigating their own judgments and limitations. You become less reactive to their behavior because you are no longer dependent upon it for emotional equilibrium. This creates more space for patience, understanding, and fairness because your peace is no longer negotiable. At times you may still feel the pull of dependence returning. Old habits of thought do not disappear immediately. When this happens, do not react with frustration. Simply return to examination. Ask again what is within your control and what is not. Ask again whether your interpretation reflects reason or assumption. Each return strengthens your ability to remain grounded in yourself rather than in external conditions. You are not asked to eliminate desire for connection or meaning. You are asked to ensure that desire does not govern judgment. Desire may guide direction, but reason must determine action. Without this hierarchy, the mind becomes divided against itself. With it, internal unity becomes possible. Over time, something important becomes clear. The completeness you once searched for outside was never missing. It was simply obscured by unexamined judgments and misplaced dependence. As those judgments are corrected, stability returns naturally. Not because the world has changed, but because your way of seeing it has become clearer. Live with reason each day as though it is the only reliable guide you possess, because in practice it is. Everything else shifts, weakens, or disappears with time. Reason remains available in every situation, regardless of circumstance. When you rely on it consistently, you discover that completeness was never something to be obtained from others. It was something to be maintained within yourself through disciplined judgment, steady awareness, and the continuous practice of returning your mind to what is true rather than what is merely felt in the moment.